A lot of people are looking at what Russia is doing with Ukraine, as you mentioned, that devastating invasion and the humanitarian consequences, sure, but also looking at the dynamic between China and Taiwan. And to what extent is that coloring conversations that you're having as you announce more build-out plans for fabs in Europe?
Yeah, and clearly, as we made those announcements last week, there was a lot of discussions with the Europeans, with the prime ministers, the EU president, Ursula von der Leyen, and all of those just again reinforce that priority. And given the situation in the worldwide context, we've clearly said for a while that we're way too dependent on too few places in the world for something as critical as semiconductors for the future. And the Asian presence here is very significant, as I've talked about before. In 1990, 80% of semiconductors were built in U.S. and Europe. Today, 80% in Asia. The CHIPS Act in U.S. and that in Europe are to rebalance that supply chain. And we're very encouraged by what we've seen from our European counterparts. And in fact, in some respects, John, they have moved ahead. They started a year later than the Senate began work on its CHIPS Act. They've now passed that, and it's to member states to begin to fund against it. So part of my message today is urgency. The Europeans have seen this. They're moving rapidly. Our announcements last week are reinforcing this. Well, and the big German fab is a big deal for us. Yeah,
well, Pat, put a finer point on that, please. I believe you're going to point out in your testimony that last year in 2021, 25 chip manufacturing build-outs were announced in Europe, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore, just 4 in the U.S. In your estimation, is there a point at which other countries, other regions reach escape velocity with their investments and it becomes impossible or just really, really difficult for the U.S. to catch up? And if so, how far are we from there?
Yeah, and I do think we're in a precarious state, or as the Intel founder Andy Grove said, we're at an inflection point. And we're either going to invest in this industry, now to see it rebuild, or we're going to decline. And today, 12% in the U.S., half of that's Intel. This is precarious. And that's part of the reason for my urgency and passion on this topic right now, because I fear if it starts dropping below 10% very far, we might never recover, and we will have a permanent dependence on Asia and other parts of the world that are just geopolitically unstable for the long term. We must act now. And it's that urgency and passion that is leading us to make mega announcements like we did in Arizona and the Silicon Heartland announcement, bringing high tech to the Midwest. The Rust Belt is dead. The high-tech center of Midwest manufacturing, we are underway. I want to go bigger and faster, and I need Congress's support to allow that to occur.